Okay, I believe I'm live. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Thyroid Healthy Balance on Wednesday evening, the 12th of March, 2025. I'm Megan Taslaman, and tonight I'm presenting to you the topic around food and food inflammation, like inflammation and how that manifests in your body. That it's not just about the gluten-free and dairy-free. It's not just about food sensitivities. There are so many different ways in which foods can come through into our system and just other ways, other things going on, and how that actually creates levels of systemic inflammation, which clearly can trigger, exacerbate, worsen an autoimmune thyroid condition. And to be honest, any type of inflammatory condition, any autoimmune condition, which are typically inflammatory by nature, or any type of like metabolic syndrome issue, if there's an issue with your cardiovascular system or metabolic health, all of these have some level of inflammation. So, we have local inflammation that's designated to a certain area. And then once it actually crosses over into the blood, it becomes systemic. And that's where, things like our thyroid gland, specifically in this particular live training, can be at risk of further damage based on whatever it is, whatever those components are that are causing that inflammation. So if you're here tonight, give me some love, drop a love heart or a thumbs up. Let me know that you're here. Certainly if you're dialing in from in a different country around the world, I'd love to know where you're coming from. I had a beautiful conversation with someone from Denmark the other day. And, it's really, I find it really rewarding and enriching when I can really connect on a deep level with someone literally on the other side of the world. I mean, how fantastic is that? So as much as, there's like a love-hate relationship with IT, well, certainly I have a love-hate relationship with IT. It certainly does. I'm very, very grateful for it at the same time because it certainly gives me the capacity to reach people in many different areas of the world. So let me know where you're coming from, where you're here. No, once again, I can't see the comments. I'm just going to pop on in here to my phone chat just to see the comments along the way. One moment. Okay, yes, I can see them there. Let's turn that down. I can see that there, so I'm just going to pop that up there. Fantastic. Jenny is here. Beautiful. Lovely to see you, Jenny. Shell, Leanne, my team, Sue's here. Beautiful. Let me know when you're here, and yeah, let's get into it. So, actually, before I get into it, I just wanted to ask, like before I really get into the nitty-gritty of this topic, if you're struggling and if you're in a situation right now where you've got a couple of fears around food, whatever it may be, it might be gluten, dairy, the big contenders, it might be, some other suspicious agents that are slipping in or not slipping in, but you're a little bit concerned about it. And you're, really quite worried that it's impacting your thyroid health. I'd love you to just drop the word food clarity, because how empowering is it when we get some food clarity? All right. So when we know that actually what we're putting into our body is serving our body to the highest good, it's not sabotaging our health, it's not causing any level of inflammation, it's not, pulling us down in any way, it's on our side as our body is on our side. So yes, I'd just love to hear from you. Kath is here. Hey Kath, beautiful to see you. Fantastic. That's good. So I'm looking over here because I can see the comments here. I can't see them on here. Never can see them on my screen. I don't know why. Never mind. Whatever. Choose your battles, right? Okay, so yeah, just drop the word food clarity if you're wanting, if you're in a situation where you're just unsure about some foods and whether they're actually causing inflammation in your body. So tonight we're cutting through the confusion about which foods are truly inflammatory for you and how to build that food conviction instead of fear. So first of all, I'm just going to point out the problem. So here's the thing, like we can't just blanket it. We can't just do a blanket diet such as gluten-free or dairy-free, because it's not just about the actual agent, it's about the source, it's about where it's come from, it's about how it's made, how it's produced. This is actually what we're up against in this day and age. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because whether the level of attention that you pay to this will depend on what's going on in your body. Like if your autoantibodies have come right down and you're feeling pretty good, and you know that there's no food sensitivity, and you know that your leaky gut is healed, there's no reason why you should abstain from certain foods, as long as you're just kind of like threading them in, very gently. All right, because you've crossed over that fence and you've built that body resilience through your healing. So that could be part of your healing journey, and that's really the light at the end of the tunnel, because we don't want to be in a situation where, oh, I've got Hashimoto's, so I'm going to be gluten-free forever. And it may well be the case for you, because there's different ways in which there's actually 5 different ways where gluten, and I'm talking about gluten because it's such a big contender. And there's so much research coming out, and I would have done a live training a few weeks ago, really busting the myth that a gluten-free diet is healthy, because we know that when we're having gluten-free foods that are synthetic, or they're mass-produced and processed, they're actually arguably way worse than the wheat counterparts, for very good reason, because they're not really whole foods. So there's a lot to go on that, and that's a whole big topic. If you're wanting that live training from, I think it was about 3 or 4 weeks ago, just write past gluten bust mything. No, that's too long. Just say gluten bust mything. I was going to say. Been a long day. Gluten bust myth, okay? And then we'll shoot that across to you, because it's really interesting. But yeah, there's actually 5 different ways in which gluten can cause inflammation in the body, depending on what's going on for you. And I'm going to go through that tonight for you. I'm not going to go through every single food. I'm going to go through that one because it is a big contender. Okay, so it's also not just about the IgG sensitivity. Like a lot of my clients, we do food inflammatory testing, and there are different levels of that. So in the old days, they just had the food inflammatory test, where we actually look at the food and, whether that's, stimulating an immunoglobulin response. And if it does, if there's a certain level and amount of foods, 7, 8, or 9 or more, then you could arguably think, well, there's enough inflammatory foods, so most likely there is leaky gut. Okay, so now the testing is so advanced that we get actually reported on the gut mucous membrane panel. And from that's broken into 2 sections. One section is that inflammation coming from the level of the gut mucous membrane, or has it hopped over the fence into the blood and is now circulating around, really rallying up an immune response, which is potentially going to be sabotaging and inflaming your thyroid because it's systemic. Okay, so this is where the testing is at. I mean, this has come out in the last few months, or several months, I should say. And it really is an extra deep level of testing, because from that we can diagnose leaky gut. It's like, okay, leaky gut, not just leaky gut, but where it's coming from. Is it coming from candida infection? Is it through the zonulin pathway, which is most likely gluten? Is it from the occludin pathway? Or is it from a lipopolysaccharide, which is, like a, invader, if you like? So, we can really break it down to see, like, I should say, a toxin, So we can really break it down to see where that's coming from. So if you're there just wondering, where is it coming from, I would say that would be advantageous for you to have this level of testing done. Because it's just an important screening tool, because you could be cutting out foods that you don't need to cut out, or you could be, you're just fearing foods that actually could be advantageous for you. So this type of knowledge and understanding is really, really important. Otherwise you could be really, going in the wrong direction for a considerable amount of time. And during that time frame, there's more damage being done. However, once you get to the bottom of it, there's no reason why you can't reverse that relatively quickly, because when we're on the right path and putting all the nuts and bolts into place and actually really organizing our healing at that deep level, that's when we can start to move forward with our health at that gut level. Let me know. I'm just checking in the comments. Food clarity, beautiful. Yes, food clarity. Shell and Leanne say food clarity. They understand the importance of that. Fantastic. Hey, Sharon. Beautiful to see you here. Yes, Jenny, we'll send that across to you. Gut busting myth. Oh, gluten bust myth. It's a bit of a mouthful. Should have come up with a different group of words there. Yes, we'll get that across to you, Jenny. Beautiful. Fantastic. Alrighty, so okay. So, and it's not just about the IgG food sensitivity testing. It's not just about super clean eating, because a really, really clean food could also be creating an immune response in your body. Okay. So here's the real question. Have you eliminated foods? Have you eliminated foods and you still have signs and symptoms? I'd love to hear from you. Type yes or no in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And certainly if you're watching the replay, if you're coming in here, even like 1 week or a couple of days or a couple of months time, even a couple of years time, doesn't matter when you're watching this live. I would love to hear from you, and just tag me like at Megan Taslamers, so that I can actually know that you've commented and come back and actually have a conversation with you about that. So yes, just type yes or no if you've eliminated foods but you still have symptoms. I would really, really love to know, because there's nothing more frustrating when you feel like you're doing the right thing but you still have these persistent symptoms, which can be a delayed reaction. All right, so that means, whoops, sorry, I should not touch that. I know not to touch the phone. Okay, I'll leave that there. Okay, so this is why with elimination diets, we don't want to just blanket it. We need to really fine tune it. It's not just about gluten-free, dairy-free. It's the quality and quantity of what other foods you're having to actually nurture your body back to health. Because cutting out without replacing something that's going to be even better is not actually, well, it still could be helping you by lessening the inflammation. However, we don't want to just lessen the inflammation. We want to fortify our body at the same time. All right. Okay, so here's the 4 ways foods trigger inflammation beyond the sensitivities. So let's really break it down to what's really going on. So the first way, this is the first pathway for inflammation, is immune-mediated reactions, which is pretty much what I spoke about a moment ago. So we've got food sensitivity, so IgG reactions, IgA reactions. We've got allergies, which is an IgE reaction. And then we've got autoimmune triggers. So an autoimmune trigger, it could come through like molecular mimicry, which is when there's, like a food protein which is very similar to proteins within the thyroid gland. So the immune system gets confused and it actually, fires the shots at the wrong area, or, it might be firing shots in the right area for the food. However, it's also destroying elements of the thyroid gland as well. So this is where gluten is a huge contender. And this will also depend whether the food molecule that's problematic has jumped over the fence. So it's actually gone through the level of gut inflammation and jumped over the fence into the blood barrier. So it's actually crossed that blood barrier. And so now it's become systemic. It's become a systemic problem. And then sometimes you could still be doing your gut healing and you could do another test and, the gut barrier panel could show normal. It could show that that's all intact and that's fine. No problem there anymore. However, because of the initial assault, you could have these immunoglobulins, or antibodies, I should say, that are circulating around in your blood for quite some time. Like it takes a really good, I would say 12 weeks minimum to abstain from that food and continue with your gut healing to eliminate that threat. And then even after that, you may need to modify your approach to that food because of the impact that it's having on your body. Okay, so in terms of autoimmune triggers, I also want to say this, that, if you've got high autoantibodies and little bits of gluten are sneaking through, the proteins can sit on the receptor, just blocking your thyroid's ability to actually do its job and, make the hormones, etc. So this is where it can be problematic there. Okay, so we've also got, I mentioned the IgG reaction, molecular mimicry. The other thing that can occur is certain foods can carry toxins. So, for example, coffee is prone to a lot of toxins. You may have already heard that peanuts are prone to a lot of toxins like mycotoxins, different molds, etc. So it may not be the peanut, it might be the mold that's actually causing an immune response in your body, that's causing inflammation. That could also be the case through lots of different foods, like, anything that's mass produced. So corn, certainly wheat, lots of different foods, and certainly genetically modified foods. It's foods that have been stored for a long time as well. They can just harbor other types of toxins, certainly non-organic foods as well, because they can include a lot of glyphosate and pesticide residue that's on the actual grain. So if you can imagine that, there's little linkages to these toxins on these little grain particles, when you're actually ingesting that, and if that happens to be a staple, so you're having that every day, even if it's gluten-free, that could actually well be opening a gateway to further inflammation in your body, especially if you've got leaky gut. And you may not even have symptoms of leaky gut, and you could have leaky gut. And that's actually linked with leaky brain. I actually don't like that term, but it's basically a leak in the blood-brain barrier. So that's when it gets into the blood, and if it can cross the blood-brain barrier, that's where we have other types of impacts on our mental health. Autism for one, which you may well know about, and there's lots of other different impacts, but we're not getting into those topics. They are quite big topics on their own. Let's just keep to inflammation in the body. So this is not to cause any fear. We don't want to cause any further fear. It's just to increase your awareness, because like what I say to my clients all the time, like knowledge actually, like when we understand the knowledge that's coming through from our body, and then we marry that with the science through some functional testing, as an example, I'm just using that blanket term, functional testing, that's when we can really get to understand what's going on in those deep levels. And with that knowledge and understanding, that's when we can actually create a treatment plan. And that treatment plan, it may not have 100% scientific proof, but we know enough about lots of different components in supplementary protocols that can actually point you in the right direction and help you along your way. You know, with supplementation, I always say that it's really to create a bridge to get us from A to B. Now, sometimes that can be for a seemingly extended period of time. We try to shorten it as much as possible. But if you think that, you know, if you've had your condition for 1 month, essentially it's around about 1 year of a treatment plan. Okay, so if you've had it for, is that right? Sorry, I think I might have got that back to front. I think it's if you've had it for, no. If you've had it for 1 month, no, if you've had it for 1 year, that's 1 month. You know what? I'm just going to leave that one out. I'm just going to leave that one out. Yeah, so there's a rule of thumb with treatment plans, but typically with gut function and gut healing, I like to go 12 weeks, which is a 3-month window. And then on the 4th month, we can retest. So that is a really, really great opportunity to see what's going on. And generally we see movement. You know, we see movement in terms of like lowering in inflammation. There might be a few little changes in some of the markers. You know, certainly some of the big gun inflammation markers on a gut function test can, you know, completely change in 3 months. So it's not that long a time when you take into consideration your whole life and how much further the damage would do if that was just left unattended to. Alrighty, so yeah, like I'm curious, like who here's had a food sensitivity test done? So this would typically be a skin prick test, and then what you do is you just squeeze the blood onto little panels, and then you pop that into the post. It gets tested, it comes back with a huge amount of information about what's going on with your immune system to certain foods, to a huge amount of foods. I always do the gold standard. Actually, I don't always. I do these days do the gold standard, which is 176 foods, and that also gives the deep gut panel. So let me know if you've had a food sensitivity test of sorts. Just drop the word immune. I'd love to hear from you. Just going to wait for some comments to come through. Certainly if you've just come on here in the live training, say hello. I'm looking over here because I've got the chat going on here and I've got the video here. So yeah, I'd just love to hear from you if you've you know, done a food sensitivity testing, which is typically a skin prick test, and you're dropping the blood on the panel. So I'll just wait for those comments to come through while I have a sip of water. Hey, Belinda, so beautiful to have you here. Wonderful, yes, awesome. Immune, so yes, Leanne has had a food sensitivity test. Beautiful, fantastic. So yeah, just drop it in the comments. Immune, if you've had a food sensitivity test done. And I'm going to now go into the second pathway of ways in which foods can trigger inflammation in our body. So this is the gut barrier. Now, I've already spoken a little bit about that already, but, you know, it's called leaky gut, intestinal permeability, whatever you want to call it. You know, it's been a, you know, philosophy that's been around for quite some time. And unfortunately, I feel that because, you know, the food quality just isn't as great. And it also depends on where you live. So if you're certainly in a rural area, I'm not even in a rural area. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm in a rural area. My husband would, but I'm not actually in a rural area. I'm in a satellite district of a major city. However, the food quality in this area is really poor. I mean, look, this is just my perspective on things. You know, maybe I have a higher perspective. I'm not quite sure, because I do look for really, really crisp, good quality produce, and I'm generally disappointed, and I get caught out because, we can't always travel 45 minutes to the best, food outlet in town. And so it kind of depends on, where you live as well. So there could be a little bit of discrimination there, unfortunately. And also, if you've got access to fresh food from someone who grows locally, that's always really, really important. And on that, how well do you know the person that's grown those foods, and where you're buying them from? How long have they been in cold storage for? So all of this will have an impact on your gut barrier dysfunction if it's already in dysfunction. So it could worsen it. So based on the health of the food, any pesticide residue, as I mentioned before, any mold toxins. So this is the second major way that foods can trigger inflammation in the body, because it literally goes through the gaps. It's very complex. However, literally your mucous membrane, if you've got tight junctions like this, they just get a little bit porous and open up. See how there's little gaps there? So that's your mucous membrane. We want it nice and tight so that when you chew your food, it turns into like a bolus, and it's mixed with chyme, which is a digestive enzyme. And then it comes down the esophagus, and obviously you swallow it, and then it goes into the stomach, which is the hopper, which is typically acidic. We want the stomach to be acidic because that's where it breaks down all the proteins and pulls apart beautiful vitamin B12 to be absorbed, and iron to be absorbed, and some other key nutrients like zinc. And then it kind of goes into the next part of the digestive system, and then it goes really alkaline. And that's when we recruited all the pancreatic enzymes and the bile from the gallbladder to break down the fats, pancreatic enzymes to break down the carbohydrates, lots of other steps in between. So essentially, there's a huge production line from the food that you eat to getting it to the microscopic particle so that it can diffuse across the mucous membrane. And what happens is when the mucous membrane gets a little bit porous, and certainly if you've got poor digestive enzymes, so that's also linked into this second pathway, is poor digestive enzyme health. Certainly if you're on a proton pump inhibitor or antacid or any of that type of thing for symptom relief of indigestion, long term, these types of medications are going to impact the pH of your hydrochloric acid in the stomach, and also impact your digestive enzymes. Other things that can impact your digestive enzymes are if you've got, blood sugar issues, because it's, same area, same organ, pancreas, or if you've had a gallbladder removal, or you've had gallstones, or you've got a compromised liver, or, there's so many different ways in which our digestive enzymes are impacted. So this is just not an overnight thing. Like, for the body to actually break down to the level of leaky gut takes decades. Now, I know for me, it most likely occurred in my childhood, because when I think back, this is the importance of timeline. And if you haven't listened to some previous live trainings, I'm a huge advocate of creating your own timeline. Maybe just getting a piece of paper and just putting down the year dates of prominent times when things happened in your life, so that you can start to correlate. And, should we ever work together in the future, this is a valuable tool. So you would bring this to me in our first session, and I'll be asking questions around this whole timeline, because that is the first point. This is the first port of call to then deciding which way we go for functional testing. Okay, so that's really, really important step to do. So I know for me, just letting you know, I know that it would have started in childhood, like probably teenage years, because I know that back then I used to have a problem with, wheat, but at the time I didn't know because I was young. And, back in the 80s, growing up in the 80s, what do our mums and dads do? They feed us, Vegemite sandwiches and cheese and tomato sandwiches, and off to school we go. So that's pretty much was my diet for lunch growing up, which is pretty Australian, let's face it. And yeah, I had a lot of digestive issues during that time. It wasn't until I really got into adulthood that I started to really crack down and nut it out and work it out. And I also had a lot of other, issues during my childhood, um, you know, in terms of balancing my mood and all of that. And now, knowing what I know now, I know that I could have prevented a lot of triggers to Hashimoto's, etc., if I'd known it back then. But you know what? This is what's led me to this path as well. So, everything happens for a reason, and life happens for us, not to us. So I'm, grateful for what I understand now, so that I've been able to apply a lot during that whole time. So, yes, let's have a look at the comments. Immune. Okay. Oh, Jenny's had an IgG test. Okay. Yes, an IgG test. That's exactly what I mean, Jenny. And there's generally an amount of foods that you can select. So it'd be interesting to see how many foods were selected on that test. So you might want to dig out that report and have a look at that. Also see when it was, because obviously there's a reason why you've chosen to have that test done at that time. So you might have had some gut issues back then. So you could actually incorporate that into your timeline to really get to the nitty-gritty of what was going on from when you did it. Belinda, how do we do that? Have a good sensitivity test, please. Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I can do for you, Belinda. Any naturopath or functional medicine doctor can order that for you. Okay, so if you're in contact, you might be in this group and working with a naturopath. You're still very welcome. Absolutely. You could ask your naturopath for a food. It's actually called a food inflammatory test, or it could be called a food sensitivity test. It just depends what terminology the lab uses. But essentially, it is an IgG test. But I quite like the one that I use, because I have not seen this in any other lab. They also do the mucous membrane layer. Okay, food, not good. Yes, I knew what you meant. All good. Transportation, dehydration. Yeah, try to grow all your green. Beautiful, Belinda. I love it. Yes. We've got a few growers in here. I know that Leanne grows a lot of her produce. I've got beans at the moment. That's about all I've got growing. Oh, and all my culinary herbs, but I've got beans. Beans, not but, and. I've got beans and culinary herbs. Fantastic. Yes. Sharon, Kath. Yes. Fantastic. Yes, I know Sharon's had one. Awesome. Amazing. Fantastic. So, yes, so let's get into and if you have any questions around what I'm sharing, if I'm using a little bit of, jargon that you don't understand, please just ask, because that's what this whole platform is for me to hopefully provide you with some inspiration and understanding and a little bit more knowledge, so that you can then apply that to your own health picture and see if it's clinically relevant or not, and potentially just look a little bit deeper with what's going on. So the third way that food can cause inflammation in your body. Actually, before I get into that, if you know that you've got leaky gut, or you've been told that you have leaky gut, otherwise known as intestinal permeability, or there's kind of like a question mark and you're unsure, but you think you've most likely got leaky gut, I would love you to type gut health in the chat right now, whether you're watching on the replay or not, because it's something that once we actually find all those missing pieces to your health and put that together, we can then ascertain if there's the likelihood that there's leaky gut. And then now we can do a food inflammatory test, which has a gut mucous membrane panel, and which is, also at the level of the gut, and also when it jumps over the fence into the blood, to see whether, yes, you do have leaky gut. Okay. So, yes, gut health, beautiful. So I'll just wait. It's gut health. Yes. Yep. Understand, Jenny, Sue. Yeah. Because, it kind of goes hand in hand with Hashimoto's thyroid, right? or even Graves' disease. It's like, okay, autoimmune. So Sophia has been told she has leaky gut as well. It often goes hand in hand. So if you've been told or you suspect or you know for sure that you have leaky gut, this is where I would love you to just really feel into and think about it. What are you doing for your body right now? What are you doing? Are you abstaining from certain foods and on a gut healing protocol? Have you done a gut healing protocol at some point in time, but you feel that that's probably enough? Where are you at on your health journey? Because when we've got leaky gut, there's ways to heal it. It's not just about, healing it from a therapeutic point of view. It's also understanding what's triggered it and caused it so that then we can abstain from those foods. It could be also stress. Stress causes leaky gut as well. It could be one of those chicken and egg things, what came first? Was it the food or was it the stress? And they could be working together and creating a little imperfect storm in your body at the moment or before or in the past. So yeah, I just love you to just really feel into that and just try and pinpoint when that has occurred, or is it still persistent now? Because it doesn't have to be a forever thing. This is one of the root cause layers that we get to work on. This is one of the root cause layers for Hashimoto's, thyroiditis, thyroid issues, autoimmunity, and other types of issues in the body. So it's just a really, really important area. And it's not the only area, but it's a really, really important area. Okay, so the third pathway, which I've already alluded to, but it is an actual distinct pathway on its own, and that is food quality and preparation. Absolutely, to really mitigate the impact of toxins, pesticides, contaminants. You may have heard that, for example, oats are technically gluten-free. They are closely related to wheat. However, they are processed in the same, what do they call them? I don't know, production, warehouse, wherever it is, hopper. They're processed in the same facility, is the word I'm looking for, as wheat. So therefore, oats can be contaminated with wheat. So if you have high wheat sensitivity on your IgG testing panel, okay, if you have high wheat sensitivity, absolutely oats would be out because of that cross-contamination. You also may have no sensitivity to wheat at all. So it might have shown up dark green on your panel. That's what happened. That's what's happened with me. It showed up dark green, which basically means there's no problem with wheat. However, we also know that depending on what else is going on in your body, gluten could still be a problem. So it's not only about the IgG test. It doesn't suddenly give you a green light that, yes, you can eat wheat now. Or sourdough, because it could be a better option. It could be the case for you if you've brought your autoantibodies down, if your autoimmune system is certainly in remission, down the track there could, and if you've got no IgG immunoglobulins that have risen on that panel and you've healed your leaky gut, absolutely down the track there could be a possibility that you have like a single origin organic sourdough wheat, and I would still then back that off and have that on the odd occasion, because you know what, at the end of the day, as a lot of my clients know and hear me say, wheat is a shut up food. It just shuts up the hunger. It doesn't really offer all that much else. We can get our fiber from our fruits and vegetables. We can get our fiber and nutrients from so many other foods. So what does wheat do? It shuts up the hunger so we can get back to it. So, we don't want to just be relying on wheat, even if that's something that you could potentially bring back later on. Could be cool though, if you really like that though. Okay, so Yeah, it's the same food, can be inflammatory or anti-inflammatory based on the sourcing and the preparation. So a couple of weeks ago, I've done a live training on oxalates, lectins, and how these types of naturally occurring food compounds can cause inflammation in the body. So with that, I spoke about the preparation, and the amount of preparation can really make a huge difference to how lectins impact your thyroid health or oxalates impact your thyroid health. So if you're wanting that past live training, just write oxalates, lectins, past training or something along those lines, and we'll shoot that out to you. It was about, I don't know, maybe a month ago, 6 weeks ago now. Okay, and glyphosate molds, I cannot stress that enough. Huge trigger. Chemical preservatives as well. So, like foods that are processed but arguably healthy. They're in the health food aisle. They may have few ingredients. However, there may be some E numbers and some things that you really are unsure of. They could be a trigger to inflammation in your body, and maybe not in somebody else's. It just depends on the level of sensitivity you have in your body. We all have very different levels of sensitivity. Okay, so the fourth pathway is nutrient imbalances and biochemical individuality. So you might have heard of the MTHFR gene. There's many different ratios of minerals in our body, and we don't really know until we know. So this can actually create a terrain in which a food can become more inflammatory in one person's body compared to another. So we want to try and ensure that our body is fully equipped with all of the vitamins and minerals that it needs to do its job, to make ATP, which is our energy, to help the health of our cell membranes. All of these things are so important. So that's based on genetics, a lot of that. And we know that, with genes, genes load the gun, the environment pulls the trigger. So just because it's a genetic predisposition doesn't mean that that's actually going to be the case. It just means that from that information, we support through X, Y, and Z. All right. So this is also linking the connection between, histamine, lectins, and oxalates, because, you could have the genetic predisposition where your body doesn't break down oxalates as well as somebody else's body. And, if you're looking at your health picture, some body evidence on that would be if you've had gallstones or gout, or, if you've got nodules, there could be some oxalate components there. So there's a lot of different elements that can lead you down that pathway. So drop bio-individuality if you know your body responds differently to certain foods than others do. Just drop in the comments bio-individuality. Because I've said it many, many times, like you can have a really healthy food, which is super amazing in one person's body, but in someone else's body, it's just, it's just not that great. And sometimes you can actually, feel into your intuition, the food that it's not necessarily a taste thing, but the food where you just think, no, I don't really want that. I don't really want that. It's not that you don't like it. Maybe you don't love it either, but, there's something in your consciousness or your level of awareness. If you're highly intuitive, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, that your body is just saying no. So if that's the case for you, I'll tune into that. I would really listen to that, because this is where we want to trust our intuition. And sometimes our intuition can give us some clues, and then we can marry that with some further evidence to find out a little bit more. And then typically we find out that it is actually the truth. So you could just follow your intuition, or you could do both if you want proof of that. But I find that really interesting, because sometimes our body knows more than what our mind can conceive. So our mind goes, oh no, that can't be the case. That's a healthy food. So we override it. We think it's something else. and then we could be stimulating some inflammation because we're just unaware or not listening to the body cues. So yeah, just drop by your individuality. Yes, Sophia. Yeah, I'd love to know, yeah, what those foods are. Oxalates, yep, beautiful. We'll get that too. Jenny's wanting the oxalate training as well. So my team will get this across to you. And Belinda, yes, we'll get that oxalate. It's not actually just oxalate. I think it's oxalate and lectins, and I think I talk about histamines. I think I've got a little bit of, everything all in one on that one. Yeah, and we'll get that training across to you. Alrighty. So moving from food fear to food conviction. So this is about shifting from restriction to confidence. And it's also about learning to listen to your body's responses and not just food lists. So we're marrying our intuition. We're obviously marrying that with some body evidence and wisdom. We're marrying that with some functional testing. And from all of that information, ladies, this is what I do. I pull all those missing parts and all that information, that anecdotal evidence, the evidence from your history timeline, those points in your health history where this happened, not just when you were diagnosed, because it could have been potentially beginning decades before that. So this is where timeline is really important. And we bring all these pieces in, and then we go, okay, from all of this, here's your health mind map. We're going to go down this rabbit hole because all arrows are pointing towards this. And we're going to start treatment plan here. We may need to do a little bit more testing to understand if there's a missing gap, if there's an area in your body where it really is a question mark and we can't quite figure it out. So that's where we will potentially embark on some functional testing, which is, why I do that, because it's such a high level of information. It just allows us to have a point of direction. It doesn't allow us to heal. Functional testing doesn't heal us. It gives us a point of direction. And with that, that's when we can have a plan that's tailored, it's individualized for you. And then we put a little timeline around that plan, like an understanding of from my clinical expertise with what's the symptom severity in your body, with how long it potentially has been going on for, and then we create a timeline for your healing as well before retesting. So this is part of the journey. So yeah, if you're really wanting to, begin your journey or continue your journey or deepen your journey on this level, I'm inviting you to do that with me. Absolutely. You're very, very welcome. You just type personal plan. And that tells me that you're actually wanting something a little bit more tailored to what you want doing now. You might have cut out gluten and dairy. You might be doing a few things. You might be taking a few supplements. Typically, people who have thyroid issues might be taking a bit of selenium or zinc, or a bit of iodine, all of these things. But that without understanding what's going on in terms of those deeper layers and those areas that are potentially the root cause, well, you're essentially going to be just, band-aiding that up for the rest of your life because you're not getting to that deeper level to heal. So if you're really wanting to get a personal plan, if you're coming in and watching the replay and you've dabbled a little bit here, you've dabbled a little bit there, but you're wanting a little bit more understanding and information and a deeper dive with what's going on and you'd like a personal plan, here's my invitation to you. Type personal plan. And what we'll do is we'll connect and just check out to see whether that plan is something that's doable for you, whether it works in with your life right now, whether it's something that you're willing to go down, whether it's something that's in alignment with you, and then we can go from there. So just a little reminder, if you've any of those live trainings that I've spoken about before, if you're wanting the replay on those, so the oxalate replay, there was the other, gluten gut busting myth replay. if you're coming in on this later on, just, type those words in and then just type replay so that we know what you're talking about. Because sometimes when we do watch this and see that people have commented and it's like 3 or 4 months time, it's like, okay, so why are they typing that? What do we offer? So just do hashtag replay and then the name of the thing, oxalates. Certainly for those of you who have been on here tonight, we know what you're after, so we're actually going to send it through to you as soon as possible over the next day or so. All right, so before you go tonight, so I'm going to wrap it up now. Before you go, what I'd love to know from everyone that's watched this live training tonight, what is your biggest insight from tonight? Drop it in the comments, because it's really important for me to understand that what I'm talking about gets across. And, like we're all at different stages of our journey. And I'd love to know, what's your biggest insight? Did you have an aha moment? Was it an area of this training that just really deepened your understanding and awareness? Was it an area of this live training that made you kind of get a little bit curious, to feel into and think a little bit more about your own health picture? Any of these things? Was it some information that you were unaware of? I would love to hear your insights. So drop that in the comments. Don't be shy. I would really, really love to hear your insights, because when I understand what your insights are, that's where I can then do a deeper dive on that very thing. So it actually helps me to create my content as well, because I'm here for you guys. I'm here for you guys. So you ladies, you're not guys, you ladies. So yes, that really helps me with my content. So if there's anything, or certainly if there's anything that you're curious about while I'm on this topic right now, and you'd like to learn a little bit more about that, or you'd like my take on that, certainly, just pop the topic in the comments here, and I'll have a look at, it could be something where there's some evidence evolving. It could be something that, I might have done a live training on in the past that nothing really has changed on that. So we can send that to you. So certainly let us know so that we can help you out with your curiosity. And thank you for being here. Thank you especially to all the new members and other members that are jumping onto this live training. It's really great for me to see you all here, and when you're interacting, it's really, really beautiful. If you haven't yet done so, drop a lovely heart and a thumbs up, because what that does is it actually helps the algorithm. So that actually helps this live training get out into my feed within this group, so that other people can go, oh yeah, that was actually, sorry, it gets out into the feed of members in this group, so that they can go, oh, that was on there. And then it actually helps to spread the word of this live training. So give me some love. Oh, there's lots of love. Thank you so much, Shell. She's giving me so much love there. Yeah, it's really, really helpful from that way as well. So thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to hear from you if you've got any further insights. If you've got a little penny drop moment and you're ready to take some action on that, drop that in the comments, let me know. And certainly if you'd like to personally message me and for us to set up a call to potentially work together, in one way or form. There's many different ways. Just type personal plan, and we'll just see if there's an alignment there, and if what I'm doing is going to work with you, and we can get moving on that. All right, that's it from me. Have a beautiful Wednesday evening, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.